Hey guys, Spudknocker here, as always. And yesterday I was scrolling through YouTube and found a clip that really caught my eye. It's a very short scene from the movie Clear and Present Danger, based off of the Tom Clancy novel of the same name. The novel and the movie depict a hot war being waged in secret by US military special forces and CIA operatives against the Colombian drug cartels. The clip in question depicts an airstrike on a large gathering of cartel leaders at a hacienda in the Colombian countryside. While the clip itself is a little over 2 minutes long, it caught my eye as being one of the most realistic depictions of an airstrike from the modern era in a film. This should come as no surprise really, since it's a movie based off of a Tom Clancy novel and are known for their attempts at depicting the world's militaries and intelligence agencies in as realistic a manner as possible. However, even the most realistic attempts at movie making fall very short of reality when it comes to aviation. A very big reason for this is accessibility. Aviation, and military aviation in general, is a very elite and inaccessible topic for the average moviegoer and the average movie maker, to the point where it is extremely difficult and time-consuming to depict aviation, and especially military aviation, in an even remotely realistic way in a film or on television. Hell, even the arguably greatest aviation movie of all time had its depictions of F-14s over the California desert sped up many times to keep the audience interested. Because even though Tomcats fly fast and dogfights are won and lost in the blink of an eye, for the attention span of the average moviegoer, it is simply not fast enough. So when I saw this clip on YouTube, I was enthralled by the realism of this clip, and I immediately went back and rewatched Clear and Present Danger. Harrison Ford is pretty darn good in it. And I wanted to break this clip down and show you guys why I think this is one of the best depictions of an airstrike and a fighter jet in film or TV. After we take a look at the clip, we're also going to recreate it from the perspective of the pilot in the most realistic flight simulator ever built, DCS World, and in the DCS FA-18C Hornet. And of course, if you guys have any other clips that you think should earn this title of most realistic depiction of a fighter jet, or that you'd like me to break down, let me know in the comments below. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the breakdown. Alrighty guys, we're going to go ahead and get started with the breakdown of this very short clip. I'm going to be periodically pausing the clip once in a while to actually talk about things that I like about it and things that I think could have definitely been better to increasing the realism of this depiction of an airstrike here in Clear and Present Danger. So let's go ahead and start off. Here we can see that we've got just your kind of usual gathering of your kind of usual suspects when it comes to these Colombian cartels. Dudes in suits in the jungle. It's kind of funny, right? And of course with some kind of ridiculous vehicles. That is definitely going to be the target of this airstrike. Maybe not such a good idea to drive around a bright yellow vehicle if you are a Colombian drug cartel boss. But we'll go ahead and keep on going here.
Like it? You see this?
And we can see our Special Forces team here is led by Mr. Willem Dafoe, and you'll definitely know him as Virgil Cole from Flight of the Intruder, of course, and he's looking through a kind of a teeny tiny pair of little binoculars here to actually look at these guys appearing at this hacienda to schwack them with an airstrike. So we'll just keep on going.
This is big enough.
Alrighty, so we've got our first look at our F-18 that is going to be the subject of our, like I said, greatest depiction of an airstrike and a fighter jet in movies. And we can see already that there's something kind of amiss with this F-18. He's only carrying 2 wing pylons, which is a little bit funky. Most of the time, ground crew don't like to put wing pylons on and then pull them off. It just adds more wear and tear to the aircraft, and it's more work that why not just fly around with the wing pylons attached to the aircraft? And we can also see that he's only carrying 1 weapon on the aircraft at the moment, and that is a single GBU-12 on the right outer wing pylon. And so that's kind of a funky weapons loadout, especially if he's about to go drop a bomb in combat. You would think he might have some more stores. What if he needs to re-attack the target? What if he needs to attack a second target? Or any other kind of target of opportunity that this Special Forces team will see on the ground down there. And While we know they're flying over Colombia, and Colombia doesn't exactly have the most advanced air force in the world, they still have a few Kafirs and aircraft like that. While they are a technically friendly country at this point, fighting the drug cartels along with the US, it might be a good idea to have these F-18s flying around Colombia with some air-to-air missiles as well. Of course, we can't tell if this F-18 is carrying any gun ammo inside the M61 Vulcan cannon, but we can just go ahead and assume he is. But like we can see here, there's no Sidewinders on his wingtip stations, and there are no Sparrows. At this point, it would be Sparrows because it is before the introduction of the AMRAAM on the cheek station of this F-18 either. He is carrying a centerline drop tank, which makes sense though, right? Needs some extra gas in the bug to get anywhere. And it's probably, I believe that this F-18 that we see here in the movie is actually real footage of a real F-18 Hornet, from what I can tell while watching it, and I've watched it a bunch of times now. And these weird, funky loadouts that we see on jets in movies and on TV shows are usually because a lot of this footage is stock footage, or the Navy or the Air Force or whoever owns the aircraft in question. They're out doing a training mission, they're doing whatever they need to be doing, and then they form up with another aircraft to take some videos, and then they keep on going back to their training mission. Most of the time, these small, short clips of fighter jets in these kinds of movies and TV shows are simply just jets going about their regular training schedule, with their pilots going about their regular training schedule, and then once in a while they'll hook up with, say, another aircraft for some video work or some photographs, things like that. So that's why we see a lot of depictions in movies and TV of fighter jets in combat that obviously don't have combat loadouts on the aircraft themselves. But it's just a small thing, and like I said, 99.99% of people who watch Clear and Present Danger would never pick up on any of this, so from the movie maker's perspective, it's kind of like a whatever, just go ahead and use this clip. So let's go ahead and continue on.
Variable, this is easy.
And we can definitely tell that this F-18 is from the time period of which the movie is set, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, because of the helmet and the oxygen mask that this pilot is wearing in his cockpit here. And from what we can see in this depiction, it definitely looks like a real F-18 in the real clouds. And we can kind of see a kind of mismatch between the time of day and the lighting effects between where the jet is flying and the target on the ground that is about to go kaboom. So we'll go ahead and continue on with this.
I know, do you copy? Over.
Loud and clear, Easy Rhino.
And of course, we can just see our Special Forces team and Willem Dafoe down here taking a look at the target, and they're going to get ready to go ahead and grab a laser designator and paint the target for the F-18 pilot.
Do we have a gig? Over.
That's a Raj. Target is lit. Start the music.
So let's go ahead and pause it once again. Obviously, we know from playing DCS World and researching aviation history and whatnot, and talking to real pilots, talking to real ground personnel, obviously these lasers that are used to designate targets on the ground are not visible to the human eye. But from a movie maker's perspective, it's more entertaining for the audience to see a laser, and it makes it seem all that much more, fancy dancy electronic kind of whiz bang kind of stuff as well. Because if you can't see the laser guided bombs following, that's not very entertaining for a very average Joe moviegoer. We can also hear the radio banter, the radio talk on between the guys on the ground, the Special Forces team, and the pilot himself is obviously extremely unrealistic. But if you had a, Willem Dafoe reading out a 9-line to unnamed, unfaced Hornet pilot in the movie, that would get stale very, very quickly. Like we said, moviegoers, people who watch movies who are kind of that average Joe category, have a very, very short attention span when it comes to this exceedingly realistic type of depictions. So that's why that's not included in the film either. And it could be that the movie makers themselves didn't even know what a 9-line is when it comes to dropping ordnance that close to friendly forces on the ground.
Into attack.
So right here, this is why I was kind of enthralled by this clip, and I was like, holy crap, I got to do something about this for the YouTube channel, was this depiction of the cockpit of the FA-18 Hornet. And we can see this is a really, really good depiction of an F-18, to the point where I believe that they shot this very quick, just couple seconds of film footage in a F-18 simulator. I don't think they did it in a real F-18, and those of you guys who maybe are more familiar with how they actually filmed this movie may be able to sound off in the comments, but the reason why I'm thinking it was not in a real F-18 is because of the way that the DDIs are set up. And we can see that these are very realistic depiction of the DDIs. The aircraft is not turned on. As we can see on the left DDI there, to the left of the UFC, we can see that he has the ADI screen up, which totally normal. And some people may think that it's a little bit funky to have the HSI up on a DDI instead of down on your MPCD, or have the ADI page up on the left DDI instead of the right one. But when it comes to real pilots flying real F-18s, or if you're flying your F-18 in DCS, there is no hard and fast rule or guidelines as to what pages you have to have on which display at what times. Pilots come up with their own methodologies of what do I want to have on my display and what's going to help me the most in this situation. And every pilot, he or she will come up with their best way of doing things in the cockpit. And that's true for GA aviation, military aviation, commercial aviation, whatever it is. Every pilot comes up with his or her best way of doing things. And as long as the result is safe, the mission is accomplished, and you're good to go, nobody's going to question you on it. And we can see, of course, the aircraft is turned off here. All of these warnings and advisories that are on that left DDI leads me to believe that this is definitely a simulator, because in my experience researching the F-18 and flying the F-18 in DCS quite a bit, it's very hard to get all of those warnings and advisories on the left DDI all at once, which makes me think that if it's a real F-18, they're just running on ground power with the cockpit on. The engines are not spooled up, because we can see the all the avionics are turned off, the FCS is turned off, the ailerons are turned off, the battery switch isn't even turned on, the ladder is still down, all these kinds of things. It shows that the jet is, if it's a real jet that we're seeing here, is definitely not up in the air, but it is has power to it. So it's either a simulator or a jet that has ground power turned on. And the depiction of the HSI page on the right here is absolutely perfect. That is an HSI page from an F-18, no question about it. We can see TACAN on the top left, OSB, waypoint in the top right, the up-down waypoint buttons for selecting your waypoint. We can see navigation designate button for turning a waypoint into a target designation point. We can see the menu buttons in the correct spot, scale buttons up there, data buttons up there. Everything that you see in the DCS FA-18 on the HSI page is present right here in this depiction in clear and present danger. We can also see the UFC is perfect. He's on radio channel 11 on his COM 1, and on COM 2, it looks like he's on channel 20. Volume button, I guess the left volume doesn't need to be quite as loud. He's got a little bit louder on COM 2. His HUD brightness is all the way off, though, so he's flying without a HUD, so that's a little bit funky. But the scene only lasts for less than a couple seconds, so nobody's going to really pick up on that stuff unless you paused it like we are now. So let's go ahead and keep on going.
Pickle top.
Okay, so he just clicked the menu button down on the bottom center OSB button. He's now gone from the HSI page to the TAC page. And this is correct because we go to the TAC menu page first, and then we go over to the support menu page on the DDIs as well. We can see he's about to press the stores button, and the radar attack button is, of course, in the correct spot as well. And look at that. We've even got the EW page and the SA page in the right spots as well. So again, makes me think they either used a jet with ground power turned on or a simulator as well. That could potentially be what they're doing here. The kind of menu button noises that we're hearing, of course, are not true to fact. They are a addition by the movie makers, and it's to make this more interesting to the average moviegoer. You know, of course, the cockpit noise would be so loud that you would never be able to hear an OSB button pushed, and so that's kind of just makes it sound more techno and high tech and really whiz bang awesome cool. So he's about to press the stores button.
Target is acquired.
Okay, I don't know if you saw it there real quick, but the button he's about to push is labeled 82LG. So 82LG for a Mark 82 with a laser guidance kit, making it a GBU 12. Pretty darn cool, and we can see on his wing form there, his 82LG is on the correct station on his wing there. That would be the right-hand outboard wing station for that 82LG.
And lift.
And we can see that he has his 82LG set. It looks like the software in this Hornet that we're seeing here is not as recent or up to date as the software that's in our F-18C Lot 20 as circa 2007-ish that we have in DCS World. And that's to be kind of expected because this movie was made, and I believe it was made in 1994, and it depicts that late 1980s, early 1990s time frame anyway. Little kind of a goof here, which is kind of funny as well, is the 82LG is also duplicated on the left outboard station, whereas on the outside view of the aircraft that we saw in the beginning of this scene only had one Mark 82 LG, or GBU 12 I should say, on the right-hand outboard station. We can see the gun button is there, the sim button, UFC mode button is there as well. Only thing that's not there that should be there is the code button for implementing your code into the bomb. And it's probably because this isn't a smart rack on this aircraft. It's probably not a brew. It's probably just a single rack on the bomb. And there's no way to actually input the code into the weapon itself. It's probably set by the ground crew with a screwdriver before the aircraft sorties. And we can see he pushes up the throttle there, and he's about to drop the weapon. And that's all pretty darn realistic. So I know we paused that quite a bit. So let's go ahead and scroll it back a little bit and just see if we can take a look at this whole sequence. And you'll see why, if you watch it at full speed, it's really, really good and really, really realistic. So we got our Hornet pilot from the outside here, and let's watch till he drops his GBU 12.
Into attack. Pickle top. Target is acquired and lift. Coming down.
All right, we'll pause it again. Of course, again, like I said, the things he's saying are nonsensical and don't really make much sense. However, for the average Joe moviegoer, it's super cool. It's fighter pilot speak stuff, you know? And so people who watch it are going to be like, oh, wow, that's definitely what they say. But for the 0.01% of us who watch the movie, it's kind of funky and not obviously not realistic. And we can see the GBU 12 coming off the jet here. I can't really tell, and it's either a gray body on the weapon or a blue body on the weapon. And one thing that kind of drives me nuts in a lot of depictions of fighter jets in movies and TV, even when they're CGI'd and they're totally not a real aircraft or a real weapon, is they usually accidentally use training rounds or inert rounds in their depictions in movies. And these are usually denoted by blue bands around the weapon itself, whether it's a missile or a blue body on the bomb itself that the laser guidance kit is attached to. Now, we'll give the movie makers the benefit of the doubt and say that this Mark 82 that was turned into a GBU 12 was in fact just painted gray. But later on in the clip, it definitely looks blue to me, but you guys can sound off in the comments on that. That was a very dramatic way to make the fins pop out of a GBU 12, but it's super cool. And we can see Willem Dafoe, he's watching the bad guys go into the house.
Looks like a full house.
Yeah, see, this is to me where it's looking more blue than gray. So unfortunately, this F-18 pilot dropped a inert training round GBU 12 onto the bad guys. So not much boom. They'll just make a little hole in the roof and they'll be good to go.
Damn it, why doesn't he fix this road?
Shit. Thought we had everybody.
And of course, this is realistic. Intelligence is not always perfect. There is always the chance that The guy you're meaning to kill is not there, and unfortunately, it was Sunday school instead in that building. You know, things go bad very, very quickly, and intelligence is not always perfect, and especially in a counterinsurgency more type of situation, which the war on drugs in Colombia truly was, and what is depicted here in Clear and Present Danger, that intelligence can be even more fraught with danger in terms of things going badly very, very quickly. It's much easier to keep track of a Russian tank division than it is the cartel bosses in Colombia, that's for sure.
Keep the target painted.
And of course, see, we've got, even bad guys have families, and unfortunately, collateral damage is just a part of warfare. After the 1991 Gulf War, and during the 1991 Gulf War, people were, very ecstatic about this seemingly new bloodless type of war. That smart weapons was going to completely eliminate civilian casualties and things like that. Well, the highway of death at the end of the 1991 Gulf War really shattered that illusion that lasted for just a little bit in the American psyche of this new computer whiz-bang warfare that was bloodless, and every piece of war imagery was of a targeting pod guiding a laser-guided bomb down the shaft of a bunker right into getting just the bad guys. And unfortunately, war is not like that, and unfortunately, collateral damage is always going to be a part of warfare. But sometimes I guess you just got to look at the greater good. All right, so right here, this is an interesting point that I think is going to make the depiction that we're going to do in DCS after we do the breakdown here more interesting to you guys, is the fact that this GPU 12 is falling through a cloud. And the majority of you guys who are watching this are going to be like, well, Spud, this is where the immersion is broken. There's no way a GPU 12 can go through a cloud and then hit something on the ground. It's a VFR weapon only, or VMC weapon only. And yeah, you're right. Absolutely correct in that assumption that a GPU 12 is, of course, a VMC weapon only. The bomb has to be able to see the target, the laser spot, the entire time through its flight path once it starts to guide. However, the weapon can fall through a cloud and then pick up a laser spot that's generated on the ground. And as we can see in this situation here, the F-18, he's not self-lasing. The Special Forces team on the ground is lasing the target out in front of them. The bomb is going to fall through the cloud layer, and then it's going to pick up the laser spot and guide to its target. Of course, in this late 1980s, early 1990s timeframe, JDAMs were actively being researched and actively being funded and developed. And of course, that would come to fruition in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and were used to great effect during the 2001 invasion of Afghanistan and the 2003 invasion of Iraq, and up to this day as well. And those weapons, you can launch them through a hurricane and they'll still hit their targets. It doesn't matter if there's clouds in the way when you drop a JDAM. However, it does matter if you're trying to self-laze or buddy laze a GPU 12 or another laser-guided bomb through IMC, but because we've got a Special Forces team on the ground with a soft flam, they are able to guide that weapon into the target through the clouds. One thing that we are seeing, though, in this depiction of a GPU 12 falling down to its target is it never guides. It never shows that bang bang guidance of a GPU falling down to its target to hit that laser spot. And that bang bang guidance of early LGBs, the GPU 12, 10, 16, etc., is a very, very distinctive feature of those weapons in my perspective. And they definitely look like they're never going to hit their target doing that kind of thing. But like I said, 99% of moviegoers are not going to care. The bomb falls, it hits the laser, boom, done. Okay.
Sir.
And we can see Willem Dafoe's Special Forces team, they're getting they're upset when they see the kids playing in the yard and stuff like that, because nobody wants to cause collateral damage. And that's why the US military and Western militaries work so tirelessly to prevent this kind of collateral damage, because nobody wants that to happen. But at the same time, these targets are such high value that Willem Dafoe kind of just tells his guys, ignore it. We got to get these bad guys. They are of greater importance, unfortunately. And it sucks that warfare forces individuals, pilots, soldiers on the ground, commanders at sea on ships to make these horrific decisions of who lives and who dies. And I think that is also part of why humans like watching depictions of warfare, because it shows the worst of humanity as well as the best of humanity, of course. So let's go ahead and continue on. All right, this, of course, they lost me on this one here, unfortunately. GBUs, specifically the weapon that is being dropped right now, the GBU-12, does not have a TV sensor on the front or even an IR sensor on the front of the weapon. You would not be able to see the perspective from the weapon's point of view as it falls down to its target. You could potentially do that with other TV-guided weapons, say like a Walleye or a GBU-15 Hobo or something like that. But with a GBU laser-guided GBU-12, it is a completely 100% passive system. It just finds the spot, and then it just kind of falls down onto that spot and guides itself onto that spot. There's no video output from a GBU-12 at all. But again, nobody else would know that besides the very few people who really enjoy learning about, reading about, and learning about this kind of stuff. And this explosion, for Hollywood standards, is pretty fantastic when it comes to depicting how an aerial bomb actually explodes. Now, from my perspective, there's probably a little bit too much fire, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that there was a large gas main under this house, or a large propane tank to supply the gas needs of this house. And because they're, Colombian cartel bosses, there's probably a bunch of ammunition stored in this hacienda. And so this kind of more Willie Pete-like explosion that we see on the right-hand side there in the trees, that's probably some ammunition going off from their, stockpiled AKs and PKMs and RPGs and things like that. We can also see a bunch of, that fire is from that supposed propane tank that's in there, but they did a good job of not going completely Hollywood and making it a fiery explosion. It's a lot of dirt, debris, and shrapnel that we can see there in the main part of that explosion. That is what you would really actually see from a high explosive that is exploded on the ground, whether it's dropped from the air or placed by a dude on the ground. You're not going to see that big fiery fireball explosion that is usually seen in action movies. Yeah, the Willie Pete though thing on the left there, that's a little bit much, but we got to make it kind of flashy for those moviegoers who don't know exactly what's going on or being depicted in this thing to make it more entertaining for them. And of course, our missing cartel drug bosses are a bit shocked and awed by the display of American air power. And then there's the explosion again. Like I said, that Willie Pete thing is a little bit much. I guess that's the propane tank at the house exploding on the left-hand side. And then we've just got the very dirty, shrapnel-filled, just smoke-filled explosion that would come from the usual type of high explosive that you would see in a weapon like a GBU-12. And that's it, folks. Let's go ahead and move on to depicting this event in DCS World and seeing if we can mirror it exactly as we see it. Okay guys, now we're inside of DCS World, getting ready to actually emulate everything we saw in the movie clip from Clear and Present Danger. Now we've got our FA-18C Hornet here in front of us with the rather funky loadout that we saw in the clip of the jet in the movie. We've got a single GBU-12 on the right outboard station with the inboard pylons removed from the aircraft entirely. We've got no air-to-air missiles or targeting pods on the aircraft and a single centerline drop tank as well. So definitely an unusual loadout, but it should work just fine for actually emulating what we see in the movie clip itself. Now let's go ahead and pause the simulation and let's take a look at what we've got set up for the ground targets that are going to emulate the bad guys who were meeting for the cartel meeting in rural Colombia. We've got ourselves a little bit of a truck here, just kind of a Land Rover type style truck, which I thought was the closest thing in DCS World to emulating that off-road vehicle that we saw being targeted by the SOFLAM in the movie clip. We've got it next to a house here where the bad guys will be meeting, and then up on the hill here, we've got ourselves Mr. Willem Dafoe and his Special Forces team. Now, of course, they didn't have a Humvee with them in the movie, but in DCS World, there's a limitation where the JTAC can't actually shoot a laser at the target unless there is an actual wheeled or tracked vehicle that is doing the lasing itself in the group that is put together as the JTAC. So let's go ahead and hop back to the cockpit of our F-18, and we will get started with emulating exactly what we saw in the movie clip. So first thing we're going to do that's going to make it a little bit easier to emulate everything we saw in the clip is we're going to go into air-to-ground master mode. For those of you guys who know the Syria map pretty darn well, you'll be able to recognize this landform that's out in front of us on our air-to-ground radar. This little peninsula here is, of course, Beirut. And then in the mountains beyond Beirut, in a valley, is where we're going to have the targets actually set up to kind of mimic that valley area around the hacienda where we see the cartel bosses meeting in clear and present danger. Now, second thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our screens just like we had seen in the movie clip itself. We're going to go to our ADI page on our left DDI and our HSI on the right DDI. And then since it's duplicated on the center screen on the bottom, the MPCD, we'll just go ahead and pull up the SA page. Why not? Now, as we can see, we don't have nearly as many cautions, advisories, and bit failures as we did in the movie clip itself, and that is because we are in a healthy Hornet that is up in the sky. We're not in a partially turned on simulator, and we're not on an aircraft just running on ground power like was probably used in the movie filming. Anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll pop in our JTAC frequency 251000, and we'll talk to Mr. Matt Wagner, who will be our JTAC today.
Death Star 1-1. This is Pontiac 511 FA-18. X-ray Charlie 9254 at 25,000. I have GBU-12 600 cannon. Time on station is 0 plus 30. Available for tasking. What do you have for us? Pontiac 5-1. This is Death Star 1-1. Type 2 in effect. Advised and ready for 9-1.
Alright, so Mr. Matt Wagner, our favorite senior producer at Eagle Dynamics, has given us a 9-line, or he is checked in with us, and we'll go ahead and copy our 9-line at this point.
Line is as follows. 1, 2, 3, NA. 6,000 feet MSL. Truck. Bravo. Tango. 28395. Marked by laser. 1688. North 700 meters. Troops in contact. Egress east. Advise when ready for remarks and further talk on.
Alright, ready to copy remarks.
Ready to copy remarks. Use GBU-12. Final attack heading 17034. Wind 035 at 6 meters per second. Overcast sky. Cloud base 16,000 feet. MSL. 6,000. Bravo Tango 28395. Final attack heading 170340. Readback correct. Report IP inbound.
Alright, and at this point, we're going to go ahead and set up our cockpit just like the pilot did in Clear and Present Danger. So as you can see, there was a lot of radio chatter and banter back and forth there that would have been extraneous for a movie. Any moviegoer doesn't need to know exactly all the stuff that was just said by Matt Wagner there at playing the JTAC role, because it's superfluous. The people who are watching the movie don't need to know all that kind of stuff. So we just set up our stores page on our right hand side. We selected our 82LG for a GBU 12, just like the pilot in the movie did. We set up our fusing and entered our code, something that was left out of the movie itself. Again, that's kind of extraneous information that the average moviegoer doesn't need to see in that quick of a clip of an airstrike. We'll go ahead and go master arm on, just like the pilot did in that movie clip, and we'll go ahead and tell the JTAC we are getting close.
Pontiac 5-1, continue.
Alright, so at this point, like I said just a little bit ago, all of that extra stuff that's in there for the 9 line of a real CAS engagement is just superfluous. But that's a very important stuff for pilots and ground crew, or guys on the ground, JTACs, FACs on the ground, things like that, to be, of course, on the very same page, so that way large ordnance doesn't get dropped on friendly troops. So it's incredibly precise and incredibly important to go through all of that, but for a movie, it's just too much, and it's not accessible for the average viewer.
Pontiac 5-1, laser on.
And we'll go ahead
Laser on.
and we'll fly direct to the target here. Probably told the JTAC to turn on the laser too early, but that's alright. We'll go ahead and take off auto throttles, and we'll push up the throttle a little bit, try and get there a little bit faster. Of course, we don't want our cartel bosses to end their meeting and get away unscathed.
Pontiac 5-1, spot.
And we'll go ahead and waypoint designate for an auto drop on our waypoint here that is on top of our target. And we'll tell him that we are in.
Pontiac 5-1, in from the southwest. Pontiac 5-1, cleared hot.
Alright, we're cleared hot. Probably told him a little bit early as well, but with the JTAC in DCS World, it gets a little bit buggy at times, and I like to be a little bit earlier than late when it comes to trying to talk to a JTAC in DCS, because honestly, sometimes it goes a little bit funky. Alright, we're getting closer and closer. And of course, we can also see that this takes a lot longer than what is depicted in the movie itself. It's not just an instant boom, boom, boom. Everything happens very quick, under 2 minutes. Alrighty, here comes our release. Getting here pretty close. Should start to get our fall line pretty quick here. Pressing our pickle button to authorize the release, and away the weapon goes. And we'll start to trim out the jet a little bit, and we can see the weapon falling down, and it's going to fall through the cloud layer and hopefully impact our target just as we see in the movie. And we'll go ahead and go over to the JTAC's perspective, and we'll kind of zoom in a little bit here so we can see the target a little bit better and see how it looks in comparison to the movie itself. Waiting, waiting, waiting. Weapon still falling, and kaboom. Pretty darn quick when it comes to
No further tasking available. Good job.
once the weapon
You made
has
it work.
fallen from the aircraft and is released from the aircraft, then that's where it goes really, really fast. So we can see in comparison to the movie, when we have a target, the lead up to engaging the target is much, much slower than what we see in the movie, of course. However, once the weapon is released, the movie is way too slow in comparison to the weapon's fall time down to the target area. And of course, there is no video feed from the nose of a GBU-12 being fed to somebody at CIA headquarters, as is depicted in the movie. So we can see that the timing of the movie as compared to the timing in DCS as a simulator or in real life is a little bit off in that way, but it builds that tension that really draws the audience in when you have, say, the bomb falling through the air for seemingly a very, very long time, the special forces soldiers on the ground seeing, oh my god, there's kids in the yard, and then the special forces soldiers are looking to Willem Dafoe and they're like, are you sure we're going to go through with this? And then, you know, it shows the kids again, and then the bomb explodes, and then, you know, it builds that dramatic tension that you wouldn't get if it was just the very quick, very fast, just falling from the aircraft right down, getting into the laser basket, and then boom, right there, good to go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was kind of a different video to make and kind of fun. And if you'd like me to do videos like this in the future, definitely let me know. If you have any other movie clips that you think are really good when it comes to how they display military aviation or aviation in general from movies, definitely let me know, and we will obviously be happy to take a look. So if you liked the video, please give a like and a subscribe. And man, I cannot wait for this cloud update that's going to make DCS World look a heck of a lot better. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.